Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the final in our disease film series. It tracks the deadly pig bat in Steven Soderbergh's 2011 film Contagion. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, or join us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've ever coughed from that special place deep inside, then you better queue up for The Next Reel's Instagram, #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge.
And with that, since Games Master Steven Smart is smartly avoiding any potential viral epidemic by enjoying an island vacation, I'm here to fill you in. This week's movie was Thunderbolt and Lightfoot from 1974, written and directed by Michael Cimino and starring Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges. A fantastic movie. Congrats to Brendo61, who guessed it on Image 1. You are entered once again into the Pony Prize hat. Congrats.
Congratulations. We do have some follow-up from friend of the show, Ben Lott, with the Blot Spot. How'd we do on blindness?
Yes, I think he was not quite the fan. He said, "And I thought Children of Men was bleak. Blindness makes that film look like Singing in the Rain. But that's actually not what made me hate Blindness. I just couldn't deal with the idiocy of every single character. It seems no one in this film has a brain. Thankfully, you guys covered a lot of the best examples of the rampant stupidity. I hated this movie and don't really care what it was trying to say through allegory, because an effective allegory would include people who behaved in a relatable fashion instead of people who are demented fools. Your rank 249, my rank 240.
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I think we comfortably agree on this one. It's interesting that that he uses the term demented fools, and this film, or I should say, and this film wins against the crazies in his matchup, which I think is a riot. But it also won against the women, and I had to follow up in the Slack group with Ben because I thought that was an interesting pairing, given how this film is both stupid on that front, showcasing human idiocy, but also a film that I just, knowing Ben over the years and his response to the films that we do as we do, I expected this film to be straight to the bottom, and he pivoted on me. I was really surprised. Did you see his response there?
I did.
He said that Blindness was only insulting to the characters in it, but the women was insulting to the entire gender. And Blindness, all characters are idiots. The women, all characters are degrading. I think that's an interesting point, and it actually puts his rank of Blindness higher than ours by 9 points.
I mean, I ended up liking Blindness, I think, more than either of you. Even though I rank it low, I still find it interesting to watch.
Oh, I like it much less this week than I did last week. It is deteriorating rapidly.
That's funny.
Andy, it's time. Let's do some trailers.
So my trailer, Pete.
Well, you just jumped on that.
I did. That's because yours is going to be more fun to talk about.
Okay, all right. Go for it. What's yours, Andy?
What
tragedy of visual stimulus have you brought to me today?
I had no idea this film was happening until this trailer landed on my computer today.
There's probably a reason for that.
There's probably a reason for that. This is Rings, the sequel nobody was expecting, but somebody decided to deliver to us in the Ring series. This is, of course, the interesting horror films that were kind of based on Ringu, the really fascinating Korean horror film. And its sequel, we had Ring and The Ring 2, which were interesting films. And now we have Rings, because why not? Let's give us some more, because we love sequels. I just don't even know what to say about this. It looks interesting. It looks kind of like another follow-up in this story. This particular round, we have Samara, who's returning with a familiar videotape to strike terror again in the third film of the Ring series. It's clearly Samara, the horror character, the creepy girl, is the one who is after a new person. And
She's
Samara.
This is Samara, the one who was the cursed girl on the videotape.
Is that right?
I think that's right. I watched The Ring, and I don't know if I lost a bet. I don't remember it. I really didn't like it, and so I have a hard time remembering it. I do remember there was the girl on the videotape, and if you watched it, you got messed up.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's this Samara is the girl who crawls out of the screen, and you have 7 days and before she'll kill you or something. It's all kind of nonsensical. I mean, the movie is fun to watch. I actually really enjoyed the American remakes of the Korean ones, and I enjoyed the Korean ones. They're all kind of fun. I just really had no idea that they were but adding another chapter to this film franchise. But here they are. I mean, and like I was saying, the plot on IMDb, it's not even important who our story's about. All they seem to care about is Samara, who's actually now striking terror in the heart of more people. In this particular case, we've got some more teens. Johnny Galecki, Laura Wiggins, Amy Teagarden look like some of them. And yeah, they're trying to deal with this curse because one of them makes the mistake of watching the video. It looks like it's now on YouTube. She watches it, and now she's got 7 days. And I will say, Samara kills you in 7 days. But I will say, over the course of those 7 days, Samara does nothing but torture you. It's just torture and horror through the whole film. As it's kind of like watching Final Destination. This girl has to deal with telephone poles almost crushing her and all sorts of crazy stuff. It looks very silly, and of course we do have Vincent D'Onofrio popping in as it looks like a blind priest or something. I'm not quite sure.
What do you do? What do you do after Kingpin? The mighty have fallen. I don't know.
Well, he's got Magnificent Seven coming out, so at least there's that.
True.
But yeah, this is directed by F. Javier Gutierrez, who is, it looks like this might be, well, he did Before the Fall.
Yep.
Which looked interesting, and short stuff before that. So
check it out. Your man Akiva Goldsman has writing credit. You know how much you loved Batman.
Akiva Goldsman has. I have some issues with Akiva, and but I believe Akiva was involved in the other ones at least. So
true. He was also involved in Batman and Robin.
Yes, he was involved in a lot of interesting things. He's involved
Lost in Space.
King Arthur, Legend of the Sword.
Yeah, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Yes, you're right.
And you know what's funny is that they have announced Mask Mobile Armored Strike Command, which was a cartoon I loved as a kid.
Totally.
And now it's announced that he is producing that. So I had no idea that they were going to be doing that. Anyway, clearly a lot of things are more interesting to talk about than this particular movie. So that's it. This movie's coming out. It's going to, it makes sense. It's going to be kind of a Halloween-y sort of thing. Here it's opening October 28th, and it's kind of going around the world from the end of October through the beginning of December.
Oh, Andy, I'm glad you have those movies.
That's the thing, is like, even though I just think it looks terrible, I'll still watch it because it's another one of the Rings Ring franchise.
That's right. My movie is, this was a surprise.
Yeah.
This movie, I just saw this trailer today. This is a trailer, of course, for Mr. Church, directed by Bruce Beresford, written by Susan McMartin, stars Eddie Murphy, Natasha McClone, and Britt Robertson. Eddie Murphy plays Mr. Church. He is a caretaker and comes into the home of a little girl and her dying mother as a cook. And that ends up spanning a 15-year relationship, and he becomes a member of the family. And it's Eddie Murphy. Where has he been, and what right does he have to make me tear up in a trailer?
Exactly.
I ask you, Andy, what right? No right. Right?
What is he thinking?
I just don't know. I did not see the Beverly Hills Cop TV movie. The last time I didn't see 1,000 Words. I didn't see Tower Heist. I didn't, I haven't seen a lot of the Shrek stuff. So for me, he's been gone. He has been absolutely gone since 2006 Dreamgirls, which I thought he was exceptional in. And now that he's back with Mr. Church, I feel like he may just wipe away the last 7 years.
Except for the Shrek stuff, which is obviously, a different thing.
Look, no, and I've got to tell you, I love the character of Donkey. I think he is a great voice for this character. In the original Shrek, maybe Shrek 2, it was a terrific laugh ride. I really enjoyed it. It came out at just the right time with my kids. I'm a big fan of those movies, and they milked it like crazy. So fine, let them have it. That's great. I haven't seen anything else beyond that, and
no, I haven't either.
I did see Shrek the Third, but really, I mean, all the TV stuff, I haven't seen any of it. I didn't see Norbit. Maybe saw a little of that on a TV. But this is like out of the blue, blue, this movie.
I hadn't heard of this. And it is quite exciting. I mean, yeah, you go back. I mean, the last thing that he did, not counting Shrek or Dreamgirls, that I would constitute as something that was worth watching, was probably Bowfinger in 1999. after that, it's been a lot of, the Nutty Professor sort of things, and Pluto Nash and Norbit, and a lot of things that I kind of discounted. I think it's great that he's coming back with this, and I agree. I mean, I was totally not expecting to practically start crying watching the trailer you picked, so thanks for that. But I mean, Natasha McElhone, I mean, we love her. We've talked about her, I believe, in Ronin, right?
Absolutely, we did.
Which just is fantastic. And of course, Britt Robertson, who, even though I didn't care for Tomorrowland very much, I really enjoyed her in it. I think that she's got a great presence on screen. And there is something really interesting about this bond that she ends up forming with Mr. Church, a.k.a. Eddie Murphy, in the trailer here. So I'm quite excited about that. And of course, Bruce Beresford, who we like quite a bit. Driving Miss Daisy, we've talked about on the show, and he's done just a lot of really great films. So it looks like it's right up my alley. It's totally something that I want to see, and very much looking forward to it. Quite the surprise you pulled on me this week, Pete.
Well, I am so happy that I was able to do that. The only thing that I would say, on your point about Britt Robertson, I totally agree with you. I think she has a shot at delivering a performance here that is more than her sweetness. She wears sweetness right on her sleeve, and even when she's in more serious roles, she's very sweet. And I think this might be a shot to do something a little bit more. Regarding Bruce Beresford, it may ring this film. It may ring just a little bit too close to Driving Miss Daisy, and that's the only thing that I worry about. It you know what I mean? Like, I
wonder
don't
what
want to
Spike
say
Lee's
that out
going to
loud,
say.
but well, yeah, right. So I don't know. I feel really good. The trailer is lovely. It comes out September 16th, 2016. So it's coming right soon. What a great surprise. Can't wait. Mr. Church, stop touching your face, Andy.
It was a groundbreaking ceremony for a new factory.
Did she mention seeing anyone who was sick? Anyone on a plane, the airport?
No, she said she was jet lagged.
The average person touches their face 3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, and each other.
Matt. Mom? No, go up to your room, honey.
So we have a virus with no treatment protocol and no vaccine at this time.
You had a seizure this morning, Beth.
Does she have a history of seizures
No.
allergies?
As of last night, there were 32 cases.
Unfortunately, she did die.
Right. Can I go talk to her?
Mr. Amoff, your wife is dead.
Contagion, Andy. We're wrapping up the disease series with Contagion, and I have to say, this is the disease film that serves as the model, in my mind, for disease films I'd hope we discuss this week, or this series. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, 100 times yes.
Where are the other Contagion movies? Where are these films? It is apparently classified as a medical thriller disaster film. It's directed by Steven Soderbergh, written by Scott Z. Burns, stars Marion Cotillard, Matt Damon, Lawrence Fishburne, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kate Winslet, and like 1,000 other people. Many of them end up dead, and it's wow, it documents the spread of a virus in a very literal, procedural, medically accurate fashion. And in that regard, maybe because of the other films that we saw leading up to this, acting as a setup for me, I really liked this movie.
This movie, I really enjoyed when it was in theaters. I had such a great time, as you can say that about a film about a disease where everybody's dying.
Right.
But I mean, I really did have a great time with it. I enjoyed the way he put it together. I enjoyed the pace. I enjoyed the style. I enjoy this hyperlink cinema, as much as we hate that phrase that somebody coined. But I love this type of story where you're jumping around to all these different interconnected people and seeing how everything is kind of intertwined. It makes it's a small world after all, that whole sort of sense of things, which I really enjoy, particularly in a disease film like this. This also, forever in my mind, is going to be linked to Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because of the way that film ends. And I think I must have seen these two like within a week of each other, where I saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then I saw this one, and I'm like, it's just like this is the end of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This is the monkey disease that everyone's going to get and die, except for the ones that create talking monkeys.
Except for Matt Damon.
Except for Matt Damon.
Everyone lives but Matt Damon, Andy.
If only he was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
You know what?
Perfect.
You know what's going to be left is a blind Matt Damon and Julianne Moore. That's all that's left on Earth after all these movies. Everybody's dead.
Oh, that's fantastic. But no, I really do enjoy this film, and I'm glad that this film was in the series because, yes, I mean, I enjoy watching disease films. I think we picked some that neither of us were big fans of. I wish that we had kind of, in retrospect, found some more that we really enjoy. But I do feel at least we're ending on a high note.
I think so too. What I like so much about this film, that it really addresses real and existential threats through a large catalog of characters. We have characters who are dealing with sort of paranoia through Matt Damon's character. When he discovers that he is in fact immune to this thing, we get to see how his paranoia plays out with his daughter as he's protecting her, as he is terrified of people coming into his home, as he carries his shotgun around and bullies her boyfriend as they sneak off together, and so we get to see how that threat manifests. We get to see these sort of existential threats around our privacy and around public health, information and around what we track. And we get to see a lot about social order and disorder, right? We get to see medical malpractice in the course of a crisis. We have a doctor who gives herself the disease essentially to cure herself with a test vaccine. We get to see a lot of these things. We get to see Jude Law and his heavy-handed treatment of alternative medicine through his blogging character. I think so many of these characters and these themes are woven inside this deceptively complex film. And I love it, even though I do hate the term hyperlink cinema. Do you remember when we last talked about it? Can you define it for the good people?
Yeah, hyperlink cinema is a story where it involves a lot of different people, and you're jumping around to different stories, and they all kind of tie together. I know we talked about it in Syriana. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember if there was another one that we talked about, hyperlink cinema.
I don't know, but I was up in arms in Syriana. Yeah, no, I don't like it. Words mean things. We don't need stupid hyperlink cinema. It's Roger Ebert's fault.
No, it was somebody else's fault.
I know somebody else did it, but
Alyssa
he's
Quart.
the one. He's the one who took it. Who took it to the mainstream in his review of Syriana.
That's right. Yeah, it was Alyssa Quart who termed the coin for her review of the film.
I think you mean coined the term.
Yes,
she did term the coin.
She did. Yes, she turned the screw and
on fire.
Coined the term. Yes. Woo! But yes,
yeah.
Syriana.
One of the things that they that is critical to a hyperlink cinema film is the use of these many of these. She calls them footnotes, but this on-screen text to help you weave your way through multiple interconnecting storylines. This film certainly has those. But mostly it's just a complicated narrative, multi-threaded narrative, and I think we're smart enough people to be able to make it through it.
Yeah, I mean, Snatch was another one that we did. City of God, they say, was, but City of God to me seems more like it's just a time frame sort of thing. So that's kind of a weird one to throw onto the list. Yeah, I mean, I in my head, it's just always been a type of film. I mean, Robert Altman was doing these back before there was ever a term. And it's just, I enjoyed kind of following different people, like in Nashville or Shortcuts.
Right.
It's very interesting to kind of jump around. And I have a great time doing that. Soderbergh, I think he kind of did it. Was Traffic the first one that he did it with? I feel like it was. When was Traffic?
That was
2000.
2000. Yes. So Traffic, I was thinking about 21 grams.
Which was 2003.
Yeah. So that was what I thought, but I think you're right. Traffic was first. Oh, you're right. Yeah. That was Inarritu.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if
Anyway.
he's done it that much, but I mean, he produced Syriana, so I mean, it's clearly something that's kind of been in his scope. But it seems to really fit, and he did it really well in Traffic. And something that I really enjoyed in Traffic is he kind of did the different color coding for different parts of the story. And you don't really get that much here. I think that he realized that people are smart enough to kind of click with each of the different stories without having to go, oh, this is the blue story now. Now we're in the yellow story. Now we're in the white story. I think that there's a little bit here with obviously the stuff going on in Minneapolis is much bluer because it's winter, and but I don't think it's as critical here, and I think it's very easy to follow.
I think so too, and you know, I think that the one of the things I do like so much about it is the way these narratives intertwine. One is moving sort of forward as the disease spreads, and then we have the doctors and the health infrastructure moving backwards, trying to retrace the steps of the virus. And you have Jude Law right in the middle, who's trying to kind of bridge the two processes in the film, and I think it just works exceptionally well. And I do want to bring up things like the Ocean's movies, like Ocean's 11. One of the things that is so nice about that, more or less procedural heist film is the way, you see him kind of practicing playing with these timelines, particularly the finale of Ocean's 11, as they are both describing the heist and executing the heist and tricking us with a false floor to the heist, all at the same time, through voiceover and shots that are cut in out of order. I think that's almost like a training ground for this film, which is on the whole doing a similar thing.
That's an interesting comparison, because I think it just goes to show that this whole idea of this hyperlink cinema, it goes beyond blending stories together. It takes just film storytelling and editing a film, and it allows you to kind of explore different ways to put things together, and kind of that intercutting or cutting things together that don't necessarily mesh. And he was even exploring that in Out of Sight, where you have some interesting scenes. Like there's the scene when George Clooney is having a conversation with Jennifer Lopez in a bar, and while they're talking, it starts intercutting to them up in the bedroom later, and then but they're still in the bar having the conversation.
Absolutely.
And
that is really elegant. That's a great comparison.
And I think that's kind of just the nature of that hyperlink cinema, is allowing an audience to get ahead and jump around within the context of the story, because I think largely audiences nowadays are able to handle that much better.
Scott Burns is a screenwriter behind the film. He had worked with Soderbergh on The Informant. This is very much a talking head film. As much as it's a disease procedural film, diseases are small, and there's not a lot going on. We get a few scenes of like mob action as social disorder takes over. In the first act, we get some scenes of people getting sick and dying. But generally, this is a talking film, and so much of the success of the film depends on kind of where camera angle and actors' mouths meet. What's your sense of the overall exposition in the film?
I think for the most part it works. I think that they managed to give us the information we need to understand it in a way that works. It works much better for a modern audience than the Andromeda Strain, for example. The storytelling is succinct. It's detailed. We get a lot of interesting information, R-naught and fomites and all that sort of stuff. We get that those interesting bits that kind of fit into this world, that give us those details, very Apollo 13-esque, where it's those details that, it's great to hear people talking about it. It may not make complete sense, but at least we know these people are, serious scientists. While also balancing, the moving forward of the story and tracking this disease to stop it from wiping out everybody on the planet. I think they do, for the most part, a good job of blending the exposition with the storytelling and moving the plot forward, kind of that exposition as bullet. There are a few scenes that definitely stood out to me, though, that I wrote notes about why the exposition is so bad here. There was a scene with Elliot Gould talking to his assistant about cooking the samples that it just felt so forced and stagey. It was kind of painful for me to sit and listen to the exposition.
as they had to kind of go through that scene. And there were a few others like that where it just felt like, gosh, if they could have just worked on that script a little more, it wouldn't have sounded quite so exposition-y. But for the most part, though, I thought they did a good job.
See, that's so interesting. I didn't have a problem with the cooking the samples scene. I almost felt like I may have. Anyway, it didn't stick out to me as bad. Where I found issues were with Jude Law's character. I mean, that guy, in bridging the two sort of narrative timelines, he spent a lot of time talking about what's going on, and with that terrible tooth. I found it sort of difficult to every time it came back to him. I kind of started losing the thread because I just was frustrated with him on screen. Did he not strike you as kind of an off character in the film?
Well, the trick with him, and I go back and forth on if he fits or not. And in the end, I kind of feel that he does, but I think that my issues with him really focus on the fact that his character himself is just a really despicable character. He's basically taking money from these companies to kind of plug their stuff as a solution for this virus. And, he's kind of just a despicable person running a despicable website, just, very, that sort of character. And so I'm torn if the reason that I have issues with him is because I feel like he's problematic in the script, or if it's just because I just didn't like his character, but his character is actually working.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think it does. He, his character, the other thing I didn't quite connect with is that they made him a heavy-handed archetype of, at the time, and the time is not that long ago, right? 5 years ago. An impression of blogging that is so overtly antagonistic and sub-professional and hacky that it feels dated to me, and that's a dated archetype, not necessarily Jude Law and his performance, but the fact that they also gave him that tooth and then gave him a homeopathic cure to say 1,000 times in the film that so invites a ridiculous manufactured lisp for Scythia. I thought was, I don't know if that's a comic treatment or an accidental sort of dental irony, but it just really got on my nerves. They were developing this film. It was actually Scott Burns who had been thinking about this film, inspired by Matt Damon's speech in The Informant. Matt Damon has he talks about this disease spreading after this phone conversation in The Informant, and he actually proposed the film to Soderbergh, who bought in immediately. In fact, according to Burns, he says, do you want to pitch it to Soderbergh? And Soderbergh responds, no, we'll get people to be in it if you write a good script, which seems like a loaded compliment.
Well, plus with Soderbergh attached, I mean, he managed to get all sorts of crazy great people to be in Full Frontal, which was a terrible film. And he had that whole contract with him about, you're not going to have trailers, you're not going to have assistants and all that stuff. And it's like all these people jumped on, that sounds like fun. It's like the same sort of thing here, Yeah. I thought it was funny that it sounded like Burns and Soderbergh were actually developing a film about Leni Riefenstahl. But Soderbergh smartly was probably concerned that it wasn't going to attract an audience, because I don't think people wanted to learn about that Nazi. And so he said,
they didn't want to learn about
do this disease film.
That Nazi. But yes, I think that was wise. It was interesting, they said that one of the things that, or this Burns says, one of the things that, he thinks really set them up for success was that they were killing movie stars and that they killed them quickly, that Gwyneth Paltrow is all over the poster and she dies very early in the film. She's peppered throughout in flashbacks, but in terms of her significance, she doesn't wear makeup. She doesn't do anything that is movie starish in this film. She ends up we meet her and then she begins to sweat and then drool and then seize and then die. And he says, if we're willing to kill Gwyneth, are any of us safe? And the next one they kill is a little boy, or at least after the unnamed woman whose legs are on the floor. So they kill people quickly, and I think that sets the tone for one of the things I really like about this film so much, which is that as one of the experts, Dr. Ian Lipkin, who's an epidemiologist from Columbia University, says disease is democratic, and that's one of the things that this movie gets right. It kills anybody, rich, poor, famous, unknown, infamous, kills them all. So that's one of the things that worked very well.
Yeah, and we even get to cut into her head.
Yeah, peel the
like
skin back.
They're serious with Gwyneth, man. They're just like hacking, and they're really going to town to see what's going on in her little brain there.
It seems a rarity. He says he worked with Soderbergh on set every day, that he was writing throughout the process every day on set. Do you think that impacted the final mix?
I think it's just smart to have a writer around while you're directing. So if things change, or if you come up with something, that you have somebody there to do it. So to me, it just is a smart way to do that.
Well, and there are always writers around, but it's the writer, not replacement staff. Touch-up writers. The writer. Yeah. I think that was great.
Something that was praised by the science community is the script. They thought it was incredibly accurate. The successes and frustrations of science, the fact that before researchers can study a virus, they have to figure out how to grow it in these cultures without the virus destroying everything. Down to the way that they put their suits on, which I really enjoyed watching after Outbreak, and the way that Kevin Spacey ends up getting it in that one. It made me very happy to see that the scientific community really latched onto this and said, this is accurate. You guys are not sacrificing the science to amp up the drama, which certainly is true of some of the films that we've talked about. They're really trying to remain true to it, and I really enjoyed that about this film. And I think as we get to some points later, we'll talk about why maybe that didn't work for some audience members.
The other thing I think that plays into that is, in his overall architecture of the film, through Soderbergh's direction, it's an intimate film, right? It touches, or we see only who the disease touches, and we are in places only where those people exist, right? He doesn't cut to any cities where the characters don't visit. We don't get this sense of political leadership. There are no cuts of the president. We don't have an Independence Day-like speech. We, from the political leaders. We don't see any giant round tables or war rooms. Even though we do see military, he was able to create a story that was about these people and still gave us a sense of the overall narrative of disease.
It was interesting because we do kind of have a war room scene, but it's the WHO war room, right?
Right.
And it's a totally different sense of things, and it's more of a scientific look at how would these people handle all this, and I like that. I like that he focused on this and didn't turn it into some big military thing with the military. I mean, certainly we do have the military coming in and closing down Minneapolis and all that, But I think for the most part, it's just really nice the way that things unfold here. It just feels very real. And I think by focusing the story just on the places where our characters are, we're not cutting to, some Timbuktu and seeing everybody dying there or anything like that. We're just focusing on these intimate stories, and it keeps everything personal. And I like that in a film that is so grand in scope because of the number of different stories we have getting told at the same time. It does help keep things intimate, and I like that. We get my hunch is that's one of the reasons that they involved the Marion Cotillard story as she gets kidnapped and forced to live in this little tiny village in China. My hunch is that they wanted that story in there so we could get a sense of kind of a rural village life as opposed to something like Outbreak where we just get just the little huts in Africa where people are getting killed and we don't really, I guess our characters did visit there too. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, we have a main character there, hence we get to know some of the people in the little village.
Well, it makes it much more human, doesn't it? That this is, it's not, just because it's not in a big city doesn't mean it's not civilized. And, it's also, it's not tribal. right? It's Outbreak gives us much more of a stereotype of where disease runs rampant from a Western perspective, and it's not necessarily accurate or fair. But this film, attempts to do this in a way that says, everybody is touched, and we get to see that, I think, in a little bit more even-handed way.
I think that it speaks to the sense a lot of these scientists talk about that it's not if something like this is going to happen, it's when something like this is going to happen. A lot of scientists really feel that, we're close to something like this. We could fall into this very easily, into this situation. Yeah. And it's pretty frightening. And they say, if a new virus pops up like this and we're struggling trying to figure out what it is going to just kill people. It's arbitrarily going to be wiping people out. They're not going to know how to stop the spread of it other than locking yourself in your house. And it's frightening because, as you see in this film, people don't necessarily buy into it. The people, in Minneapolis that are talking to Kate Winslet, the politicians, the small town politicians are so frustrating because they're like, look, we don't want to close the malls. Can we wait until after Thanksgiving? They don't want to be closing the schools, all this sort of stuff. And it's who's going to be paying for all this? And those are the things that these people go through their minds because they don't understand the scope of how something like this can really wipe things out. And because, as we also see here, we had a false alarm, and you get those false alarms, and it can really make people feel like it's not something they really need to do anything about.
Well, and I don't get to say this that often, but this is an example, and that scene in particular with the small town administrators is a great example of the day being saved by math.
Right.
When Kate Winslet walks through the R-naught mathematics, the reproducibility calculation for how quickly these diseases will spread based on the number of people you are likely to infect if you get sick with this disease, was really interesting. And I spent the next half hour or so with my daughter watching, creating spreadsheets that calculate that. Like on day 10, when it hits 500,000 people, based on this R-naught calculation, where will you be? It's terrifying, but absolutely grounds us in the reality of the situation. I think they do that really well in the script.
Yes, indeed.
Let's talk first shot, last shot.
First shot, we open over black and we hear coughing, and then we cut to Gwyneth Paltrow. She's in the airport. It says day 2. She's on the phone with her lover, and they're having a conversation. And, she coughs a little bit, and he's like, oh, you sound are you okay? And she's like, oh, I'm just jet lag. That's how we open the film, day 2. Now, interestingly, the last shot of the film, we kind of have jumped back in time, and we have now seen construction from her company happening. They're tearing down a forest. This bulldozer plows into a tree. We see the bats fly down. Bat bites a pig. These pigs are taken by chefs. We see a chef buy it, cook it, and then he smears bloody pig mess all over himself, and then he leaves the kitchen to go pose with a picture with Gwyneth Paltrow. And so the very last shot of the film it's day 1. We see Gwyneth hugging this chef, and I don't know if she just doesn't notice his bloody apron or what, but she poses with the picture, arms around him, as we see them the picture getting taken, and it says day 1. So it's an interesting structure that they've done here, where we actually start with day 2, and then we end the film learning how this whole thing started by jumping back to day 1.
Yeah. How does that work for you? It sort of creates a on the surface, it becomes a narrative loop. For me, I think it works really, really well, and it provides just the kind of backstory that I'd been hoping for the entire film.
Yeah, it is really interesting because we do see these scientists really trying to figure out where this thing came from, and they're looking through old video footage of her as she's at the casino, and that there's transference there. That's where it could have come from. Let's track that person. As they go back through all of this. And it's really interesting because they never are able to pin something down. And it's not until the end of the film when we see Matt Damon looking at her camera, and he sees these pictures, and he spots this picture of her which is the moment that instigates us then jumping back in time to see her in this particular scene. It's a great way to kind of solve the mystery. We now know how this whole thing happened. We are the omniscient viewer watching this, and the people in the film are likely never going to know. And it's a really interesting way to end the film, saying this is how these things happen. The world may never know how it started. We're going to show you in the audience how it happens in this film, but in reality, this is the sort of thing that there may be a clue out there that no one ever finds.
And just how simple it is. Right?
Yeah,
how simple, how quickly this thing happened because of these animals that we just keep together, that we farm in the way that we farm, that we have destroyed this land the way we have destroyed it in order to create this. And yet still, this disease spread so simply or created itself so simply. I think is a great message. This first shot, last shot is super intentional, and I think is another great example of a pairing of these two devices. I think it works really well.
Yep, very interesting.
Stay away from the bloody apron.
It should be a lesson. You shouldn't be hugging chefs with bloody aprons on in the first place.
I think, no offense to chefs in the audience, but generally don't hug a chef if they're in chef mode.
My message to chefs is leave your customers alone if you are covered in food.
Don't hug me.
Wait till you're cleaned up.
Please, chefs, don't hug me. Editing by Stephen Mirioni. Mirioni? Is that how you would say it?
I think I would say it that way.
He's got some wow credits, right? The Revenant, Birdman, Monuments Men. That's for you. We've talked about the editing, I think, enough. But I shout out, of course, to Stephen Mirioni. It's great work. The cast.
There's an interesting review in The Atlantic by Christopher Orr, who said, "For all the craft that went into it, Contagion is ultimately beyond good or bad, beyond criticism. It just is," which I think is kind of a funny way to describe it. I think there's obviously a lot of craft and art that goes into a film like this. I think it might be a reflection of his reaction to the hyperlink cinema style here and the number of stories. But I do think there's something to be said about that. You have so many of these stories and you're jumping around so much that in the end, it's like, is there a single performance that really stands out? And for me, I didn't think so. I enjoyed all the performances here. I think that Soderbergh works really well with his actors and was able to get some great stuff from all of them.
I think you're absolutely right. And in that light, let's just give credit where credit is due. We've got Marion Cotillard as Leonora Orantes, our kidnapped victim, Matt Damon as he is the guy who is immune to this thing. He is ironically married to Gwyneth Paltrow, who is patient zero. Is it interesting at all to you that patient zero is married to the guy who can't get sick?
That's funny.
I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Lawrence Fishburne is the doc. Dr. Ellis Cheever at the CDC. Jude Law is the blogger. Kate Winslet is Erin Mears. She is also working with the CDC to study. One of the things she did in this film, specifically on Kate Winslet, she did spend time at the CDC, and she said she wouldn't wear makeup or dye her hair or anything because the people in that role in real life that she plays, they don't make much money. They live at or below their means as medical practitioners, and so she thought it was important to represent that in the film. Very natural.
The cold that she gets when she wakes up hacking, I mean, that the sound effects team gets big kudos for that because it was just disgusting. I've had colds where I sound like that, and it's just the grossest sound.
Yeah. That was actually one thing that Soderbergh said in an interview on Al Jazeera English. He said nobody on this team, on the team of people who made this film, hears coughs the same way again. On planes, in elevators, it is life-changing after the sounds that were crafted for this movie.
I can imagine. Jennifer
Ehle plays Dr. Ali Hextall. She is fantastic actress. She spends a lot of time in a suit and over a computer.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, considering what I said, that she was the one that kind of was singled out by a lot of the critics as the one who they really felt was outstanding. She's the kind of the standout here. And Kenneth Turan in the LA Times actually said the two-time Tony Award-winning actress Jennifer Ehle comes close to stealing the picture with this quietly yet quirkily empathetic performance, which I thought was really interesting. And I think it really, for me, boils down to the scene with her dad, which was really touching, and then of course just the when she gives herself the shot, which is pretty it's a brazen, brave thing to do. Certainly, what was it? Was it what was that Killer Bee movie where was it Michael Caine injects himself with something to stop the killer bees? I don't know why that just came to my head. But
I don't remember.
Jennifer Ehle carries it better though.
Elliot Gould is Dr. Ian Sussman. He works over at the university, and he is asked to shut down and cook the samples because this thing's just too deadly. Ends up being the guy who sort of saves the day. Chin Han is Sun Feng, the kidnapper and Chinese administrator. And Bryan Cranston as Rear Admiral Lyle Haggerty, the military guy. Boy, that could have been a good typecast for him if he wasn't so damn talented.
That's right.
I can see him. The biggest one, I'm so glad you highlighted this too. The biggest one, the biggest bit of casting that I thought was so powerful, it was John Hawkes as Roger.
He's just always great.
He's always great in such a small role here, and yet this role really humanizes the whole medical angle, right? Because he's the one connected with Dr. Cheever. It represents both the socioeconomic gap, the intellectual gap, the professional gap, and yet they become close enough that Cheever actually sacrifices his own vaccine for Roger's son. Very powerful.
Yeah, it was good. Great moment there.
And terrific cast all the way around. Cinematography, Steven Soderbergh as Peter Andrews actually lensed his own film. Talk about that.
Yeah, this was something going all the way back to, I believe it was Traffic. He wanted to have a credit that said photographed and directed by, but the Writers Guild, they would not allow another credit ahead of the writer. This boils down to those contracts and how all that stuff works. And so because Soderbergh did not want his name used more than once in the credits, he decided at that point to adopt the pseudonym Peter Andrews, named after his father, Peter Andrew Soderbergh.
Well, that's very charming.
It's very sweet.
That's very sweet. The film was shot on Red 1, 4.5K. Is this one of the earlier films on this camera? Do you remember?
I don't know. I'm not sure when the first Red came out. It feels like it must have been one of the first ones, but I don't know.
Well, it looks like a great treatment it looks very much like film. They did a great job in post, actually distressing it. And
here we go. In March 2007, director Peter Jackson completed a camera test of 2 prototype Red 1 cameras, which became the 12-minute World War I film Crossing the Line. On seeing the short film, director Soderbergh told Jannard, who was I think somebody at the he owns the Red company. I am all in. I have to shoot with this. Soderbergh took 2 prototype Red 1s into the jungle to shoot his film. It was Che.
It must have been Che.
It was Che. That's what it was.
Nice. Good find. Man, that red camera. Do you know Sing Street was also shot on that red one?
I don't think it was Red 1. Was it a Red 1?
It was just shot on red. It was just shot on red. You're right. Yeah. It's not a red one.
Yeah, they're way past the 1.
They're way past the 1. They're on Red 7.
The Dragon now.
Red 9er. Isn't it the weapon? The red weapon? Isn't that the new one? It's like the 8K.
I don't know.
It is. There it is. It's the red weapon.
That is a silly name.
It doesn't. It looks like it. It looks a little bit like a weapon. Yeah, it's the Scarlet. The Scarlet is the new 5K.
Yes.
And the Epic was the 6K, and the weapon is the 6.8K.
Wow.
8K, Andy.
So much for Blu-ray.
Need that for my YouTubes.
That's right. Oh, man.
You want to talk about anything else about cinematography?
Just that, because he was shooting on the Red One and on location, he really wanted to do as much natural light as he could. So he did a lot of natural light, which I think looks great here. And then, he color timed it. So like I mentioned with traffic, there was some of the different color temperatures highlighting different particular areas, which looked nice. And the only other note I had for cinematography, which I think sometimes was done in camera and my hunch is sometimes done in post, but the way that they would change focus, particularly how he would highlight a particular area where a sick person touched and he would linger on something. And you kind of get that funky focus where everything is kind of out of focus except for one little area that's really in focus. And I liked the way that he was playing with the focal plane in this. I thought it was a great way to emphasize the way that these fomites are transferring the disease around.
Did you find yourself actually mad as they would do that? Like as they would linger on the peanuts in the bar and on the door handle and...
Like mad at the person who touched it or mad at the filmmakers?
Mad at the person who touched it and at restaurants for having community peanuts?
And why does that guy touch the bus door when he gets off?
Yeah, it's just so gross. I was so mad. And particularly, that the average human touches their face 3 to 5 times a minute. And I'm super hypersensitive to that now.
That's so funny.
I'm always thinking about touching my face. All right. We talked about locations shot very much on location for the most part. Chicago was shot as Minneapolis, Atlanta, and as itself, Chicago. They did shoot at the CDC in Atlanta and Hong Kong for multiple locations, including London, Geneva, and San Francisco. Really true to form. They wanted to make this film as intimate and local as they could. I think it succeeds.
I don't think they filmed Hong Kong for London, Geneva, and San Francisco.
They did, but only for certain neighborhoods in London and Geneva. It may be surprising to you that Hong Kong actually looks a lot like Geneva, but only in certain neighborhoods. So they're sticklers.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What'd you think of the sickness? Early in the film, we see the crustiness around the lips. Did it feel appropriate for the nature of the pandemic?
Yeah, what I liked about it is it wasn't dissolving people's innards like Outbreak. I mean, we never see it when they cut the body open in Outbreak, and you don't see exactly what it's done to the person's insides. But what I like here is it's clearly a very scary thing that kills you really quickly. Your skin's not all falling off, but it's scary enough in the fact that it moves really quick. You start having seizures, foaming at the mouth, fall over, die. I mean, it's scary how quickly it is. I don't think they needed to make it gross too. I thought it worked perfectly.
I think so too, and I think the scene that sells it the best is Matt Damon sitting there watching and holding his wife as she seizes on the kitchen floor, because so much of the scariness, the fear that begins to spread for us as audience members is cemented in watching a personal spousal relationship unravel as a result of it. Like, she is going to die, and we all pretty much know it, and we get to watch him deal with that. And I think that actually sells it as much as the makeup. But overall, I agree with you. I think the sickness looks good.
Great
You
stuff.
wanted to talk about Cliff Martinez behind the music.
He's one of those composers that I kind of like, but I kind of don't like. He's worked with Soderbergh quite a bit. I think that he is a composer who has kind of found his place in the industry, making stuff that it kind of creates a mood for a story, and you get a sense of that as you watch something. But man, his stuff is just not really listenable. That's my biggest struggle with him. Is it's not like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross doing Social Network, where it is kind of mood music, but it still is something that you can listen to. His stuff is really hard to listen to outside of the film. I think it works in context of the film. It gives me the energy I need in particular scenes to kind of move me through it. But man, I just don't enjoy listening to his stuff outside of the movie. That holds for most of his stuff. I can't think of a score of his that I ever want to put on.
That's interesting. I haven't listened to much of his stuff. I thought it was interesting that he was behind the score of War Dogs, which you guys just talked about in the latest Film Board episode.
That's right.
Did you have anything to say about War Dogs' score? I don't
remember a thing about it.
I listened to it.
Yeah, I saw the movie. The music didn't stand out for me.
Oh, well. He also did the music for The Knick, and I wanted to talk about The Knick because, if I'm correct, you have not started watching that show.
I have not. I still really want to.
This is Soderbergh's show on. It was originally on Cinemax, and I only just started it literally this weekend. I didn't even know that it was a Soderbergh thing, but he actually, just like his films, he directed and lensed every one of the 20 episodes in across 2 seasons. So just one episode in, I can tell you, it's bananas, Andy. It is bananas, super intense, and really gross, but fantastic.
I can't wait to see it, and I am surprised that Cinemax is still even around.
Well, I think they're actually owned by HBO now, so really I should just say HBO.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. The scoring, initially when Soderbergh handed the rough cut off to Cliff Martinez, he had the scores from The French Connection and Marathon Man backing the film before the original music was applied. What do you think? Do you think it would have been better or worse with The French Connection and Marathon Man?
Probably better.
Okay, I just wanted you to say that on tape. Final comments on the disease?
The only other thing I was going to say about the disease itself was that this was actually happening right around the 2009 flu pandemic that we had, and they used that as inspiration along with the 2003 SARS epidemic that was going on at the time. And but to actually kind of create a sense of what this disease was, they actually used the Nipah virus, which originated in Malaysia in 1997. And that one kind of evolved a chain of contagion from bats to pigs, and starting from the disturbance of a bat colony by deforestation. So they kind of pulled that story to create this origination for this particular disease, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Don't hang out with bats.
Or pigs.
Or bat pigs.
This is what they get for cooking those little baby pigs. I felt so
awful.
bad for those piglets.
Awful. Although I have to say, the only thing I think of when I think of this movie now is the that Simpsons episode, Spider Pig. So that would have been worse.
That's funny.
How'd it do in the box office?
This film didn't do too badly. This film, it opened September 9th, 2011. It cost $60 million to make this movie. I couldn't find anything on prints and advertising, but, it did garner enough interest and drew the crowds in. It made just over $75 million domestically and just almost $62 million internationally. All told, adjusted, that's about $143 million that it ended up making, leaving it at about an adjusted profit per finished minute of about $761,000.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it puts it as number 78 on our list, right between The Town and For a Few Dollars More.
That's really good.
Yeah, they did pretty good.
I think I'm going to stand by really good.
I like it. I do like this one. Like I said, I feel like we ended this one on a high note.
Thank God. What a downer. Just about everything else was. I think it's probably time for us to go ahead and rank it and see how it goes.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and search for Contagion. There are a couple of them. This one was 2011. And then go ahead and click that little button, say add to your ranking. And you'll see. Let's see how it fares against our, what is it? What are we up to now? Almost 250?
This is going to be 259.
259.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how it goes.
First up, Contagion versus Fat City.
Oh, Contagion.
I'm going to say Contagion as well.
Okay.
Contagion or The Silent Partner. Oh, we're getting a little speakeasy double action here.
Right.
I'm going to say Contagion.
I'm also going to say Contagion.
Contagion or The Matrix. I am The Matrix on this one.
I am The Matrix.
Contagion or LA Confidential. Totally LA Confidential. Contagion or Zodiac. Zodiac for me.
Are you heavy Zodiac?
Not even a question.
Okay, Zodiac it is.
Contagion or Scarlet Street. Totally Scarlet Street.
Yes, definitely Scarlet Street.
Contagion or Out of the Past. Out of the Past for me.
Out of the Past. It seems pretty easy. I'm trying to come up with a reason to disagree.
We don't have to disagree.
Well, drama.
You just want some tension.
I just want some
This is
tension.
the climax of the episode. We need tension.
Rock, paper, scissors. Don't worry, you'll win.
Contagion or The Great Escape.
Oh, I'm going to go The Great Escape.
Me too. Contagion or Never Let Me Go. Here I'm going to say Contagion.
I am also going to say Contagion.
Look at that. Number 64. That kind of shot right up there.
That's funny. I think it's like 69 on my list.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's
a good spot. Yeah,
feels
it's
really
a good spot. Absolutely.
And certainly the highest in our disease series, right? I mean, can you see real quick what the next highest one is?
Well, Serenity is the highest.
Oh, well, no, of course, that one wins, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely...
You would rank Serenity over Contagion, right? Tell me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good, okay.
As I do at the end of every series, on our Letterboxd, I will create a list for the whole series, and I will put them in the order that we actually ranked them. I won't put the numbers, because that's always changing, but I'll at least put them in the order so people can see exactly what we thought. And for the most part, they end up shaking out pretty accurately.
What does this do for Letterboxd for you out of 5 stars?
I'm 4.
I'm 4.5. I gave it the half star, the Andy Grace star. Half star.
Look at that.
Yeah. No, I like it.
You know, I really thought about this because I'm like, am I giving this 4 stars because I've watched a lot of bad disease films, or am I really giving this 4 stars? And I think I'm really giving this 4 stars. I really liked this film when I saw it way back in 2011, and I still really like this film. It doesn't have to do with just, it tasted better than the other stuff that wasn't so good.
I think so too. And it's a different kind of film. The first time I saw it, I didn't like it that much. And I think it was because what I expected was Outbreak. And back then, my memory of Outbreak was quite positive. It is not accurate anymore. That memory is no longer quite positive for Outbreak, and so I felt like I was able to look at this film more through the lens of what I want a disease film to be, what I want a procedural film like this, a medical drama thriller, to be. And I think Contagion succeeds in so many areas where so many other films fail in this light. So I love that we ended on this one. I am a fan of Soderbergh, not all of Soderbergh, but a lot of Soderbergh, and so I feel like this is true to the catalog for me.
Here. It's interesting because we covered genre disease films like The Crazies and Outbreak. I guess you could kind of put it into there as a little more of an action film, and The Omega Man. And Serenity. I certainly enjoy disease incorporated into those genre films. And Serenity obviously was kind of the top of the heap there. But of the ones that we looked at that really focused on the disease itself, which, I mean, really I think it's Andromeda Strain, kind of Outbreak is kind of crossing the line between the two. Mm-hmm. And this one is the one that really stands out.
Oh, yeah. Head and shoulders.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? New series.
Yes, we're done with this, and we're in celebration of the upcoming Magnificent Seven remake. We're going to be doing our Seven Samurai Family series, which is going to be quite a bit of fun. We're going to be looking at Kurosawa's original Seven Samurai, and then a number of films that have been inspired by it, or are remakes of it, like The Magnificent Seven, the original one, Three Amigos, which is going to be a lot of fun to talk about, A Bug's Life, which is, I think some people were a little surprised initially that this was on the list here, and The Magnificent Seven, of course, the remake with Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt.
I love it. I love how broad this series is.
Absolutely.
It makes me happy.
You know, I will say it's interesting. I think Bug's Life is the only one where you actually have any of the people who are a woman. Otherwise, it's predominantly men.
Oh, doesn't make me that happy. I think that's it, Andy. I think I'm done. I'm done with being sick, and I just gotta go to bed.
No, Pete, don't. What I need to tell you is you need to get in your car right now and leave town. Get down here where it's safe, but don't tell anyone.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
Oh, we got a couple of delightful 1-stars coming at you. This is a 1-star titled Educational, Not Thrilling, by Joel Landau. And you just saw this a couple of years ago. Frankly, dull, says Joel. They tried and succeeded to demonstrate how an infectious disease would spread, be identified, and dealt with. It's timely given the recent Ebola outbreaks. I would say it's informative, but the acting was poor and the plot flimsy. Think of it as a documentary with acting. Poor acting. Now, I actually appreciate this because I can totally see where he's coming from. And this is kind of my sense memory of my impression of the film the first time I saw it. So I absolutely see how people could feel this way after watching this film, depending on kind of where they are.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier that I was going to get back to this point and never did. But I think there was something with some audiences, how they really felt that this film was boring. It wasn't as engrossing as something like Outbreak. It just wasn't, a fun watch. It felt very clinical. It felt very documentary style. Almost, I guess, some people probably felt like it was a modern storytelling style compared to Andromeda Strain. Mm-hmm. But I guess to each his own, because I disagreed with Joel. But I think Marie feels pretty much the same. Marie gave it 1 star and said, really bad acting, horrible dialogue, actors you can't care about, so long and boring and absolutely no climax, just fizzles out. Story doesn't even make sense. I don't know what else to say. I feel brain dead after watching this.
Well, I disagree with her too. Thanks, Amazon. It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.